They want you to be obedient, to forget your culture, your family, your freedom. They erase borders, destroy traditions, and turn nations into a faceless mass. This is globalism, and it's coming for you. They say this is progress. But is it really progress? When your children are taught they have no gender? When an algorithm controls your money? When your homeland dissolves into a unified world? No, this is not progress. This is enslavement. But we are not slaves. We are the ones who remember, who resist, who refuse to break. We have not lost as long as we refuse to stay silent. Seek the truth. Unite with those who fight before it's too late. Your voice is your weapon.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tabs on Tap. Happy Monday morning. Happy to see you. I had a little bit of a rough start this morning getting the show going. I don't know what was going on. It kept taking me back to Friday's show. Who knows what's happening with these crazy streaming services. But either way, here we are. Good morning, Linda. Good to see you. Boy, it was a hot one, wasn't it? It was very, very warm this weekend. I'm going to be bringing Col Joe Adams to join us in about 1 minute. Before that, since I got a little bit of a late start, I just wanted to jump into, obviously, Col Joe Adams joining us today. Cannot wait to talk to him. So much to go over with Col Adams of the Washington Guard. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a few different topics. Today, I want to get into the fact that there is no such thing as a secret mission these days with internet and with instant communications. There's not a lot you can hide. I don't think any enemy would be surprised over anything that's going on these days. And there were signs, obviously, that this was going to take place. Most people picked up on those signs. I wanted to talk about Israel already talking peace. Maybe they've done their part and the war's over. We'll get into that. We're also going to be talking about sleeper cells in the United States. How worried should we be? What type of weapons do they have? Do they have surface-to-air missile launchers? I'm going to say yes, they do. Do they have dirty bombs? I'll say yes, they do. We'll talk to Col Joe Adams about that as well. Good morning, Rob. And we've got other things to talk about also. Iran allegedly striking our Syrian airbase. We knew that was going to happen. I posted about it last night. Like I said, there is nothing secretive anymore. If something's going to happen, we're going to know about it before it happens. So here we go. We're going to look for Col Joe Adams now, get him in on the discussion. Good morning, Col Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. How are you doing this morning?
Better than over the weekend. I mean, this was a crazy weekend. Not just because of the bombings and the airstrikes, the gun shows, and the Chinese warning that came out, and the Palestinians trying to buy guns. It's been a crazy weekend. I was looking mostly, and it's probably the first Monday I've looked forward to in a long time. So how'd you do this weekend?
You know what, Col Adams, I thought a lot about you and some of the things that you told me. And, I haven't posted anything about it on social media. I thought, you know what, Col Adams, you're going to be joining the show today. I'm going to let you break this news. I didn't want to hint to it to anyone because this is your story to tell. But people, have been blasting me on Facebook and social media over my concerns about our power grids and attacks on our power grids, or our water system, or the weapons that our enemies might have, and who is really our enemy. I have been getting blasted on social media. I don't really care, of course, but I want you to tell the story of what you witnessed and what you have heard and what you've been told, because I think everyone needs to know.
You getting blasted on social media for what? Telling the truth?
Exactly, for telling the truth. People are not always open to the truth, Col Adams, because I'm not going to talk about how I feel. You guys already know how I feel. The Iranian regime, they're terrorists. I am 100% against the Islamic Republic, and we all know what they've done to their citizens. I am 100% for a regime change. Yes, I'm so proud of our military and for everything they've accomplished. But did I think we needed to get involved? No. And people don't like to hear that. That means I'm not a Trump supporter, by the way.
Oh, okay. I was hoping they would stick around a while and finish the work over there. Basically, what happened? We gave Iran a spanking instead of breaking their back. That's the best I can describe it. It was kind of funny because somebody called me and said, "Hey, couple." I said, "Well, that's a long way around." Anyways, I said that's crap. So several times starting Friday, I tried to place bets that Trump was going to hit him before the weekend's out, and every time I said, "I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 5-to-1 odds. I'll bet you $100 that Trump hits him before the weekend's out." And they go, "No, because you know something." I go, "No, I honestly don't know anything." And everybody, as soon as I'd say that, they go, "Well, that tells us you know something. We're not betting with you. Never bet with because he always wins." And sure enough,
well, and I'm glad you said that, because everybody's talking about secretive missions. Even Pete Hegseth was talking about how it came out of the blue. We surprised everybody. I don't really think we surprised anyone, unless it's just people who are just not paying attention. A lot of people aren't on the same back channels we are, don't talk to different people, so I get that. But it was posted all over social media when those B-52s took off in Missouri, and everyone was talking about how they were refueling in the air, which meant that as soon as they took off, which meant that they were carrying something very heavy. And at that moment, I think so many of us knew exactly what was going to go on. There's no element of surprise anymore. I was told last night, oh, Iran's preparing to attack our military base in Syria, Qatar, and somewhere else. And I'm like, oh, okay, everybody. And guess what? They sure enough did. In Syria. It's impossible in the days of internet and instant communication for there to be a secret mission for the most part.
No, our military prepped those bases for attacks a month ago. That's why this shelter. I don't know why you keep saying shelter in place. That's kind of silly. But no. I mean, the military. Why do you think they're there to play wet towels? I don't think so. They're prepared.
Yes, they are prepared.
But let me explain something about those
military in the world.
Yes. So before I get into the gun shows and the foreigners buying guns here and the crazy stuff, and the thing that went out to the police departments, which is shocking, they haven't announced that, but it's an in-person. Anyway, I'll explain it. The reason the B2s do nothing but round trip operations is because they have to be hangared in a special hangar. That's because of the stealth treatment on that plane. They have to be, if they're not flying, they need to be in that hangar, and that's why there's a special hangar. I'm not going to go into details with it, but it's about the stealth coating for that, and that's why people say, why don't you just keep them over and stay over there? Because of the hangar. So anyway, I'll let that go. Hey, yes, some lots of things happened this weekend. Big gun show in Fenton, Missouri. Of course, we had a muster on Saturday, training muster on real life scenarios, and we're basically training for real life scenarios for what's probably going to happen here in the United States. I was after the training muster. My instructors got them going, and it got weird. So to start off with, there was a coming around and buying up every assault weapon good, everything. He goes to my friend and says, I'll buy all of your AKs, all SKSs, all of your ARs right now, cash. He's a Middle Eastern guy. And so they, okay, fill out the form, we'll run you and see what happens. He's passed. He's passed. So he puts on his application for gun purchase. I think it's country of origin. He puts Palestine. It's not. There's no country of Palestine. Then my buddy across from me, who was with the Israeli army and in the Ukraine army, goes over and takes a listen, and he comes back to me and says, "Hey, Colonel, that guy's West Bank. He's West Bank. I know that accent." So I look at my other friend who's going, this guy wants to buy these guns. I went, not today. So so we point out on the application that it said there is no country of Palestine. Okay, he draws a line through it and puts Israel. So my friend calls it into the feds, and they pass him. Go ahead and sell him the guns. That ain't right. You can smell that across the room, right?
So did he did effectively purchase the weapons then?
No. I'm getting to that point. So there's no reason not to sell him the weapons, and he's got cash. But he's also got something else in his hand, like large plastic bags. And I said, "Hey, what do you got there?" He said, "I was buying H&K parts for the MP5, which is like the FBI's favorite assault weapon for entry." And I said, "What did I buy?" He said, "I bought trigger systems for them." Well, let me see those. And I said, "Did you have to fill out a form and apply for these things?" "No." I said, "Well, who sold them to you?" "I'm the guy back there." Well, they were unregistered seers. And if your listeners don't understand what that means, is this was a bag of parts that could machine gun. And this guy's, so it kept getting worse. So I took his app. I said, we lied to him and said, "You're on hold." And that's Bible, because on the weekend there's so much gun shows that sometimes you call up, not me, they don't delay mine. Somebody once said, if you want to, the colonel has the fastest clearance through the feds to buy a weapon we've ever seen. Even one guy that was running me goes, "Who the hell are you?" He said, "It was like they were waiting on my phone call about you." I said, "That's another story." So this guy, so we tell him, "You're on a delay." He goes, "Well, that's okay. I'll be back in 20 days. I have to go visit my family, but I'll buy all the weapons and any machine guns you might have." He just blatantly said that. Yeah. So and they passed him. So I told my friends, I said, this guy is working. He's either working for the feds directly, which is fine. That's good. Or he's working something off, trying to work it off. So sure enough, I got his application to the right people, and they come in and they go, "Hey," I go, "Really? Yeah. You give me the details. Is he working it off, or is he working for you?" I go, just say he's working. So I go back to my friends. I say, "Hey, this guy is working." But I feel sorry for that guy who sold him MP5 parts. I mean, his ass is in trouble. So that's one. Number two, you want to talk about the Chinese?
Most definitely. You mean our real enemy? Our real enemy.
Well, maybe more so than you think. So I'm at the training muster, and one of our chief instructors trains police officers. So this police officer came to me and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you about the Chinese." I'm thinking, "Oh, what can you tell me about the Chinese? Geez, there's 275,000 clowns here." We put out an order. It started in St. Charles. St. Charles, like, O'Fallon and St. Peter's and all that stuff. The police are going around to the gun shops and the indoor ranges, in ranges period, outdoors facilities. If China try and buy anything or come and shoot at your ranges, don't let them. Now it's in St. Louis County, West County primarily, and they're going around to the ranges and the vendors who sell guns and say, no Chinese, right? Then I leave, I get this information. Then I go, "Are you?" And it's a reliable source, believe me, one of my guys. So I leave and go to the gun show, and guess who shows up at my table trying to buy guns? Ho Chi Minh and his brothers. That's who got Missouri ID. They couldn't speak English, supposedly, so they used the translator app so they could communicate with me. Then when they ran my names, this one Ho Chi Minh looking guy walks up and goes, "Hey, by the way, look at this." He tells his friends, and they see me on the internet, pictures of me. Picture I've never, with my history and all that. I don't know who puts this stuff on the internet. I posted anything about myself. on the internet. So cat,
You have a
cat.
visitor.
I thought this whatever. That's my life. So now, so the Chinese would buy these guns, and then I was listen to this. I didn't even know what this is about. The police warned me that the Chinese are going around looking to buy guns, and if they can't buy them, they want to photograph them and send the information back. What does that mean? Like the Chinese don't have pictures already? So I intentionally, I said, hey, hey, yeah. So I asked Ho Chi Minh, I said, hey, let's do this. Since you think I'm famous, let's all take a group shot because I want to make sure Beijing got a picture of this face because I'm not hiding from anybody. So I talked to the vendor and I told him, the gun show promoter, I go and get him. And I say, hey, let me tell you about a conversation I had with the police about the Chinese. And you got a group of them in here. Well, boop, they're gone, and we removed them. But isn't that weird? They're going around taking pictures. What is that?
But look at everything that's going on with China right now. You know, I sat and thought this weekend, which I've thought many times in my adult life, about how many times I've been fearful for Iran, the country attacking me or doing anything and the answer would really be zero. Now, when it comes to China, on the other hand, what is it? We've had 4 incidents in the past, 6 weeks in which somebody from China was smuggling in illegal pathogens, viruses, very dangerous pathogens into our country. I mean, we have them floating their little communication weather balloons or buying United States farmland, around our military bases. They are our true enemy. And if they're coming over here trying to purchase weapons, I don't feel that it's for their defense. I'm wondering what it is they're up to because we know that China has so many operatives in this country, and you really have no idea who they are or what even type of person to look for.
Well, these guys that came to the gun show that we got rid of, young adults, all males, they're from New York, and they just finished a hunting safety course. And the guns were provided to them for the course. I said, well, where did you take the hunting safety course? Being a foreign, New York. So,
it could be, there's a lot of, I don't even know, Colonel Adams, there's a lot of people I know who do come over to China for what they call the Western, the America experience, where they come over and they want to hunt and do things Americans do because, they can't do anything like that over in China. That's very limited, their ability. I get that, but I also get that we face such a growing threat from China right now that it's very difficult to trust anything that they do. Look how many, what was it, 2 or 3 Chinese nationals snuck into, Mar-a-Lago and were taken photos and video and were apprehended. We've had them wander onto our military bases. The one thing they have in common is they always play dumb. They always say, "Oh, I didn't mean to. I didn't know. I don't speak, English, or I don't read English."
Yeah, so Sally, I got lost. Yeah, I understand, but this Chinese thing is bizarre. In bizarre, there's no official announcement or anything on TV that. Okay. Oh, here's another thing. So the vendors say to the police, we could be sued for discrimination, and the vendors to say this.
Oh, you froze up for a second. I think it'll unfreeze.
Yeah, probably so. Okay, come on. Thought. So they're telling the vendors this. If somebody says anything about discrimination, and something just didn't feel right. Because in the definition license, straw parties, if you don't feel right to sale of what this person is doing, don't do it. And that's not discrimination. I'll give you an example. Out no fouling, this happened. Lady comes in to buy a gun. and she's acting funny. The vendor says, I don't feel good about this. I'm not going to sell you a gun. She said, well, I'll sue you for discrimination because I go around this town all the time and I buy guns for my friends. And they other shops always sell. Well, thank you for saying that. He goes, get out. Now, that's a straw party. So stupid. And that's when this happened.
Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times at a gun show have I seen these women sitting down, filling out papers and think, well, what do they need an MP5? What they're buying doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, over in the corner stands the boyfriends or his friends, walk out, get in the cars and leave. I like that
Right.
SWAT team one time in St. Charles. I said, hey, those young adults and sitting in the car, go. And she said, hey, Colonel, it's just the street. Bombing. What else you want to talk about?
Well,
I think you.
can we backtrack for? I just want to say one more thing about the Chinese buying weapons before we move on. Is if you're receiving this warning, then our government knows something. This isn't just some fly-by-night warning. Oh, discriminatory. Let's not sell the Chinese any weapons. Something has happened. They have been warned about something, or you wouldn't be receiving those messages. We wouldn't have a bunch of Chinese guys coming from New York taking a safety class. It kind of reminds me of 9/11. Remember when we had all these Middle Eastern people taking all these flight instructor classes? Why? Because they needed to fly an airplane. Remember? And when people look back, the people who taught those men, how they instructed them on how to fly an airplane, they didn't care about landing. Remember that? They only cared about taking off. They only cared about flying in air. They never even cared. They just dismissed the landing. Red flags everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Gee. But who doesn't want to land a plane, right? No, not them. And nobody said anything. Nobody said anything.
No, that's just it. No one said anything. We have to do better. We have to be more aware. And Colonel Adams, one of the things you can talk about anything you want also, but one of the things I really wanted to bring up is the threat that we might face. Now, I know Iran made a threat to us overnight that said that they are going to take out 50,000 of our U.S. military members. Now, we know that Iran makes really big threats that they typically do not carry out, of course. I know that last night our military base in Syria was attacked. We know they're planning to attack other of our military bases. I don't know if these are going to be near misses like the story Trump told us that Iran called him, said, hey, we just want to save face, and we're gonna have a near miss. I don't know if that's going to be the situation or if Iran is very serious that they are going to harm us. But we know, and Russia just this morning made a comment, Dmitry Medvedev, Putin's right-hand man, that said, hey, guess what, United States? 30% of the weapons that you guys gave to Ukraine ended up in the hands of the very terrorists, that want to harm you. And guess what? Those weapons are in your country. Now, we know that the terrorists, I'm not talking about necessarily Iranians, although they could obtain them as well, but we know, even if it's not Iran, there is ISIS, there's Al-Qaeda, there's the Army of Islam. They're waiting for moments like this when we're weak to attack us. We know they have surface-to-air missiles. We know they have dirty bombs. Is there a real threat?
Absolutely. The best term I heard was on the news was I was walking through the house and I heard this guy say, for now until in the near future and for unforeseen time in the future, your head better be on a swivel. So, and that's called situational awareness. And we teach that at the Washington Guard. Situational awareness, indicators. There's always signals, indicators. And so, but people don't want to live like that, and because they don't have. I'm surrounded in this community with people who just want to live their lives and go about their business. They haven't prepared. They haven't trained. I asked my closest neighbor I think we talked about this. I said, how much survival food or prep food do you have in case we go off the grid? None. This guy's a hunter. None. I said, well, why don't you have any food for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a year? We don't need it. We just go to Schnucks.
I worry about those people.
Well, they better worry about the grid. The first thing they're going to pull a grid, and that's bad. I went by one of the power stations the other day, and I'm thinking, no security. I can take it out from my car, and I wish somebody would do something about this. I'm 100% Second Amendment and rights, right? I don't think there should be any licensing for any weapon whatsoever because of people like me who have the weapons for a reason, to support this country, support the community. It's very dangerous because I was Chinese free markets that sell them. So I don't know if they've caught on yet, but like yesterday, a guy walked in and I said, "Is that Generation 1?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Did you buy a Generation 1 Tech 9 at a flea market?" "Really?" I said, "You know what?" I said, "You know why the ATF banned those guns, right?" He goes, "Oh yeah, full automatic machine gun. They convert in 5 minutes. So by the way, you guys are manufacturing these guns and they're cheap, but they can go full. We're going to stop that." Good. So that's when it hit me. I think these Chinese guys just tried to buy guns from me. The Palestinian tried to my friend, which he turned out to be a mole. What if they go to the flea markets?
Right.
Dangerous.
And they are. And they will.
It doesn't hurt to get ready. It takes effort. And I know all security is a pain in the ass. Even to have an alarm system in your house is a pain in the butt because you've got to take the time either to service it, install it, and use it. But if you do that enough, it becomes everyday habit and nature. So it's second nature. But people have to get off this. Hey, Happy Days is over. They took that show off the TV for a reason because there ain't no happy days. All you can do is make it a happy. That's my people. I mean, I told them on Saturday on training.
Oh, Colonel Adams, you're breaking up just a little bit. Yeah, so you're breaking up just a little bit.
About now.
Yeah, I just wanted to add. Yeah, sounds great right now. I just wanted to add that I don't think it's fear mongering for people to be aware of the threats that are around us. I made a post on Facebook about, on all my social media pages about the power grid that, really most people think, well, if they're going to attack the power grid, they're going to have to go to all these different substations, but that's not true. Really, we only have 3 primary power grids in the United States, 6 in total, but 3 primary that control almost the entire country. So if they only attacked one of those 3, it would be absolute chaos. As an example, you and I are on the same power grid, despite the fact that, where we are situationally located, and it goes all the way up into Canada, all the way down from the Gulf Coast, all the way up through Canada is one power grid that goes right across the Midwest. It wouldn't take much to throw us into absolute chaos. And that's what I don't think people understand and what the terrorists' objectives are. It's chaos and anarchy because you know what? They will allow us to destroy ourselves. All they have to do is get us where it hurts, and then we will pick up where they left off because like you said, the people who aren't aware and that aren't prepared, that don't have the groceries at home, who don't know how to hunt or take care of themselves, they're going to come for what you have.
You pretty much described my neighbors because they're really upset with my wife shooting every day. And this is this thing.
Oh,
I don't know if I told you or not. So every time my wife goes, she shoots every day because she's training for the NRA World Championships, and she's shooting. And because of my reputation, of course, they call the police on me. The police shows up and says, I go, oh God, it says, Colonel, we're just. And I said, well, first of all, you don't understand. It's not me. So every day they come out, I throw Deanna under the bus. No, there's nothing they can do about it, but these are a bunch of, did I tell you about the Karen thing? I gave you a little humor. So I think the police go, well, I'm going to go back up and talk to Karens about what's going on down here, just training and everything's safe. And I told my wife, I said, I think the people on the hill, I think the lady's name's Karen. Well, I didn't know that Karen meant a middle-aged lady who's always angry. Yeah, I didn't know. I thought that people complaining was named Karen. So anyway, that's funny. But
that is extremely funny. They should be happy to have you. I would love to have you as a neighbor, because that's another thing, Adams. I'm glad you brought this up. You're breaking up just a little bit. I wanted to bring this up is that, know who your neighbors are. Know who your neighbors are. Where I live, I have the mayor behind me. I can't see his house, but he's connected behind me. I have 2 former police officers to my other side. I have a veteran on another side and some other good people who are well prepared. You have to know who your neighbors are, because if something goes down, you might all need to band together, for equal protection. Or maybe not with the Karen that you live by.
But the police said the same thing. Something, Colonel? The people who scream the loudest are the first people who would help ask for your help. It happened in Hampton Park in St. Louis. I was the old crazy Marine, the largest flag in the neighborhood, and the neighbors knew that I was a private investigator, retired military. I worked with Border Patrol for 12 years. They know all that. It gets around. It's on the internet. So, in Ferguson hit, and they're scrambling. They're trying to get security in there to protect them because they can't protect themselves. Well, guess what happened? Here they come to me, right? And said, is there any way you can protect us? Now, these are people I've never spoke with. I'm out there cutting my grass, and they don't even wave at me. All of a sudden, I became their best friend, and I took care of business. We had to engage the bad guys twice. Team on the ground within hours, and of course that's where Jamie Alma lives too. Then Jamie he chipped in. He's a character. So anyway, the cops were right. The people who scream the loudest were the first people to contact you because they are not ready and they can't protect themselves.
That's exactly right. It's not like people have to go out and get crazy to be ready. You don't have to get crazy. I always tell people, obviously water is number one. You have to have cash. Get your cash out of the banks. You don't have to take all of it out, but make sure you have cash on hand. Make sure that you have a food supply. For me, because I live in a rural area, there's deer, on the property all the time. My neighbor feeds a deer. And every time I do, I just see that, I know where to go. People you have to be prepared to work outside. There's a lot of things you have to do.
If you've got acreage, never hunt on your own property.
That's right.
Get permission to go to that could be your food. So I've got I had deer in my front yard every day, backyard every day. You sit there and count the deer and the turkeys and all. And my sons are always saying, "Hey, come on." No, be my bounty someday. So no, do not hunt, and that's the secret.
That's exactly right.
Don't hunt on your property. Somebody else.
Exactly. Feed them. I know people, Colonel Adams, who, and I'm not saying that this is what people should go this far, but I know people who have released rabbits into their property and, quail and pheasants and, turkeys and everything else. And they just feed them. And, they don't take care of them necessarily. They're not sheltered, but they feed them because in the case of emergency, then guess what? There's your food supply. Feed the deer, attract them to your home. And then, you have a lot less to worry about. But I know not everybody lives in a rural area where they can do that. And, and I know you have talked to me personally, and I'm throwing this out there. I know you didn't plan for me to talk about this, about freeze-dried food. What is your suggestion when it comes to food and being prepared?
You know, that's one of the main topics of what the Washington Guard teaches in the ladies in herbal medicines, all that. And I was shocked at a lot of the stuff. I'm just a whole hard ass Marine living off MREs and stuff in the field that really didn't care. But it's amazing when you have time to prepare of what you can learn and how to do it. I'm like, I can't go into detail because if I had one of my instructors here, I would let them tell you all about that. But my people are professionals, and everybody goes through those courses, and it's constantly being brought up again. So you need to join something like the Washington Guard and learn. And you can always read.
Yes.
But I think a society, the more prepped they are because they're more down to earth. People in the city don't have time for that. They just figure, I will go to Schnuck's store or we'll go to Aldi's and buy 2 cases of red. Well, that's a start, but how long will that last? And what if there's no medicine?
Exactly.
So it's
because people will rush. They'll rush the grocery stores, they'll rush the pharmacies and the gas stations first.
And don't forget, gas stations have to have electricity to pump gas. Hit a grid, boom,
Yes,
no gas. It's going to be interesting to see what the silver and gold market does if they are successful in blocking off that Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah. Well, as of this morning, Colonel Adams, and you may already know this, they're predicting gold to reach 4,000 an ounce. I mean, it was just 2,500 an ounce not too long ago. Now they're talking about 4,000. That's insane. And silver has been growing exponentially even more than gold recently. It is insane. And the dollar, of course, continues to decrease.
Yeah, gold's going to probably hit it. Is going to, from the 2020 price, it's supposed to go up like 48%. So people should have bought gold back when it was $350 an ounce, but nobody thought about that. So it's going to be interesting, especially the silver market too. I don't know what's going to happen. I do. The one thing that stood out, the B-2 stuff, okay, the bombing, they did. I will tell you that this is one of the most successful strikes ever achieved in American military history. I mean, it was just surgically done. And thank you, President Trump and Hexowitz and the rest of them. They did a great job. And it's just a refueling. So I expected that. But what's more impressive is the submarine launches 400 miles away and hit it.
Yeah.
That is impressive. B-2's hands
I couldn't
on.
agree.
That's amazing. When those submarines were made, they weren't even fitted for those missiles, and now they can fire them. Unbelievable.
Tomahawks. So, I'll tell you what, they did a fantastic job. I'm so proud of our United States military, as I always have been and will always continue to be. They are heroes, no question about it. Colonel Adams, before you head out, something that I want to talk to you about, and just because I want your opinion, I'm not even sure if you're aware of the speculation about this, but there's a lot of talk. I was talking about on social media. It's kind of funny because then Alex Jones also started talking about it. I'm like, well, if I'm crazy, at least I can be crazy with Alex Jones. But, there were several media outlets that reported. It was the BBC, NBC, CBS, the Jerusalem Post. A lot of people said, okay, well, all liberal outlets, which also could be the case. But I also think that if they posted this, they could get, sued for defamation if it's not true. And we know that Donald Trump does not put up well with media lies. But all of these organizations stated very directly that Donald Trump gave Iran a warning, some say as early as 24 hours before the strike. And what he did, and I'm guessing if he did do this, it's because he is a great thinker. He was thinking ahead, but I don't see it as a derogatory thing. But they're reporting that Donald Trump the White House gave this information to a third party in the Middle East so that third party would relay it over to Iran to basically say, hey, we're coming in. We're only going to strike your nuclear facilities. We have no other targets. We're not there for a regime change. We're in, we're out. And that allowed Iran to evacuate those facilities, which they did. And as you know, they did not strike at us at all. They did not strike us at all. They didn't even attempt to. And do you think that Donald Trump did give that warning, or do you think the media is lying?
He didn't say that. The media just making stuff up.
Now,
They,
if that's
they,
true, then
they had
do you?
they had evacuated those facilities almost a month ago. No
That
foot
could be
traffic
the case.
whatsoever. No, no, that's a total crap. What I'm more surprised is that Iran did not use their military to keep people from leaving. That's a shock. Now,
Oh,
we all know you can't trust photographs anymore and with AI.
true. Or video.
So
Yes.
those pictures of those cars leaving Tehran uh, could be AI. Never happened. And even the photographs that was released by our government on the damages, I see a couple of things I'm not happy with. More information coming out. So hopefully, a month from now,
That's
2 months
right.
from now, 3 months from now, the same outcome as we see today is the same outcome we see 90 days from now. Keep your fingers crossed, because believe me,
It's
in
all
my
we can
world,
do.
nothing is as it appears. Okay. Thanks for having me. I gotta get on the
Thank
tractor and do
you.
some mowing, and I appreciate that. And great, thank you, President Trump, and thanks to our military. You guys are amazing. Tabitha, talk. I'll see you Wednesday. Okay. I'm out.
Yes, yes.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day, Colonel Adams. Thank you so much for joining us today. That's Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. So happy to hear from him. I'm working to get him out of our screen. Sorry about that, Colonel Adams. Let's see here. Thanks again to Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard for joining us today. I always value anything that he has to say. And, he and I talked a little bit over the weekend about the situation with the Palestinian that was attempting to purchase all of these weapons. Turned out to be, again, like he said, he was working. He wasn't just there spontaneously. He's out trying to bust some folks. So good job there, Colonel Joe Adams, and all of the other folks at the gun show, except for the guy in the back who sold him some mechanics that he shouldn't have sold. And then, we have the situation, as Colonel Joe Adams was explaining, the warning that police officers or police departments are giving across the area, at least in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, et cetera, not to sell to Chinese nationals. If they come in and it looks funny, just say no, because we don't know what these people are doing. And I'll tell you what, we can guess and speculate all we want, but if those warnings are coming from our police departments, then there is something they know. They have been given this intelligence for some reason, and we just have to trust that it's valuable information. And so a lot of you have joined in while we were talking to Colonel Joe Adams. And good morning to all of you. Brenda says, why is media saying it didn't really do any damage to Fort Howe? Brenda, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was something I wanted to talk about today. I read a statement from Donald Trump this morning who said, you know, we still, hit them hard. I didn't save it to talk about it, but something about still hitting them hard. I consider that obliterated, because allegedly our missiles or, our airstrikes took them down probably 100 feet or so into those facilities. But there's other people who are saying that while that might be true, we certainly did damage those facilities. And JD Vance said we set them back years. It would be very difficult to completely annihilate one of these nuclear facilities. I mean, they're hundreds of feet down into the ground. They're very expansive. And it's hard to even know exactly how far down they go, how far they go across. And prior to these airstrikes taking place, we were hearing all of the talk about how our bunker buster just isn't enough to hit one of these facilities, especially Fort Howe, and penetrate it, that it would take a tactical nuclear weapon. And we all talked on Friday, is it even possible? Would Trump even consider using a tactical nuclear weapon to attack Fort Howe, just to make sure that they completely dismantled and disabled all of the Iranian nuclear facilities? And then, we, of course, did not use a tactical nuclear weapon. We did perform a very precise strike. If you look at the before and after photos, you can definitely see the damage that took place. And I agree with JD Vance and I agree with Donald Trump that we caused enough damage to set them back many years. And that for now is good enough. I don't think anyone really expected the entire facility to just be wiped out, off the face of the earth. I don't think anyone thought that was possible, using these types of bombs, but we did enough damage. That's all that matters. It was a very successful operation in that respect. We set them back many years, and that I think is satisfactory, to everyone. Now, the thing that I think a lot of people are going to be paying more attention to now or down the road is that there was no radioactive fallout. And so a lot of people, and I've got the photos, I didn't load them to show them to you today, but a lot of people think that Iran did have the uranium, and that what they did is they took that uranium and they left with it before, because you see these photos, satellite photos of just trucks and trucks and trucks pulling up to the Fordow nuclear site. And these trucks, we don't know what they're doing there. It's hard to tell through a satellite image. Some people believe they just simply took, the uranium to another location because they knew these attacks these airstrikes would eventually happen. Other people say, well, there's no radioactive fallout because it was never there to begin with. They weren't actually working on a nuclear, weapon. Now, I think we all know, maybe they weren't 3 weeks away like Israel claimed, but we all know, of course, they're working on nuclear weapons. They always have been. There's no question that's the case. How close are they? I don't know if any of us will ever know. But, we'll probably learn more as the time goes on. We'll see when the next warning comes out that they're working again and how close they are. Because trust me, 3 years from now, a couple years from now, we'll hear those warnings again. Oh, Iran, they're so close to having a nuclear weapon. We've got to go over there and do something about it. Trust me, in my entire adult life, I've heard it dozens of times, and it will happen again. No question about it. No question about it. And let's see, trying to see if I missed a ton of comments, and we don't have too much time, so I won't be able to go back and look at them all. But some of the things that I wanted to talk about was, the growing threat from sleeper cells and from other terror organizations. Now, depending on what happens next, will depend on how much we need to worry. There's a lot of talk today that Israel is talking peace, that they said, okay, we've come in, we've accomplished what we wanted. There's no more threat of Iran creating a nuclear weapon, and we're going to step back from here. We did what we needed to do. Now, that's talk this morning. I'm not saying that's going to happen. Those are just some of the things that are circulating around. Now, we also have Russia, who's kind of stepping into the foray, and they've said, Iran has asked for our assistance, and we're going to give it to them. Now, they haven't lined out exactly how they're going to line that out. But now also a lot of this depends on Iran. It doesn't matter if Israel is, and I don't know that they are, I can't confirm it. It doesn't matter if Israel is calling for peace. What is Iran going to do next? Because, they are allegedly very angry. And I say allegedly because we still don't know 100% what took place behind the scenes diplomatically. Donald Trump, and I don't think I'm speaking a disservice to him. God knows I love Donald Trump. I wouldn't be here doing this show if I didn't. And my support is 100% behind him. And I don't see anything. I may not agree with everything he does, but that doesn't mean anything. I don't agree with a lot of things a lot of people do, and it doesn't mean I don't support them. And in this particular situation, Iran has threatened to take out 50,000 of our U.S. military members. Now, do we take that as a serious threat? Are they just bluffing for the sake of showing the world, what they think? I'm going to play this video clip so you guys understand a little bit more where I'm coming from. This is a story that Donald Trump posted that he talked about with Iran, and how at one point Iran said, hey, we just have to show, we want the world to respect us. And so we've just got to act like we're striking back at you. So when Iran threatens the United States, I don't know if it's a real threat or not. It's really kind of crazy to think about. You can see this video clip and judge for yourself.
Before you go too far, would have never happened with me. I had Iran in check. Do you know, we hit them very hard for something that they did, and they had to hit back. They feel they have to do that, and I understand that. Do you know they called me to tell me we're going to hit a certain location, but we're not going to hit it. It's going to be outside of the perimeters.
Who called you?
Iran called me. Iran called for me. And they let us know, and we had 16 missiles went off. I believe it was 16. 6 or 7 failed in the air.
When was this?
This was prior to the attack on a fort that we had where they hit back. Do you remember when they sent 18 missiles or 16 missiles? 5 failed. They let us know, don't move. We're going to have to hit you back. Psychologically, we have to do that because we hit them on something. You remember. They sent 16 or 18 missiles, and we knew they weren't going to hit inside the fort. And the media was going, and now I reveal it, the media was going wild because they say it's strange. They're very accurate missiles. How come they all missed? Nobody was killed, if you remember.
Yes,
with all of those missiles, nobody was killed. Now, they had to do it because they have people and they have to show strength. So they aimed the missiles, but they said, please don't attack us. We're not going to hit you. That was respect. We had respect.
And that's why I bring up that situation that people were so angry at me talking about. And then later on, of course, we had Alex Jones also bringing up, the same potential scenario, because we've all seen this video and we all think, okay, Donald Trump, if there's anything he wants, it's to make sure that we don't lose any American troops, and I think the other thing that Donald Trump wants is diplomacy. He wants peace. His number one campaign promise was peace. Not only peace here for us Americans, but peace for people across the world. And that's the only reason why I suggested it's a possibility that if in fact we did warn Iran ahead of time, that's a diplomatic solution. I don't see that as any type of downfall. I don't see it as discrediting Donald Trump or his administration. Certainly doesn't take away from the heroes we have in our military. Donald Trump thinks diplomatically. And if in fact he did, I know Col Joe Adams doesn't think he did. There's a lot of people that don't think he did. They think the media lied about it. And the media may have lied. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But I also am fine with a diplomatic solution, because you know what? When we jump in and we go into another country and we attack them, what's our number one fear? We don't want to lose Americans in that mission. I don't think there's anything wrong with Donald Trump relaying a message to Iran saying, hey, we're coming in. This is all we're doing. We're taking out those nuclear facilities and then we're leaving. There's nothing wrong with that happening. Absolutely nothing wrong. And I don't understand why people think that's an attack on Donald Trump, because it absolutely 100% is not. We voted for him because we don't want to go to war. And I feel like we just did the right thing in retrospect. We went over, we took care of business, and we left. And then afterwards, we have JD Vance coming out. I do have a video of JD Vance as well explaining exactly that, hey, we went in, we had a mission, we accomplished it, we're done. So take a look at this.
Is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. And let me just say, Kristen, that we're incredibly grateful and proud of the American Air Force pilots who did an incredible job last night. The operation was really extraordinary. These guys flew from Missouri. They didn't land a single time. They dropped 30,000-pound bombs on a target the size of a washing machine, and then got back home safely without ever landing in the Middle East or ever stopping, other than to briefly refuel. And of course, they did that in the air. So it's really an incredible operation, a testament to the power of American military. And I think what shows what can happen when you have that great American military in the hands of capable presidential leadership. What we did is we destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. I think we set that program back substantially, and we did it without endangering the lives of the American pilots. That's an incredible thing, and I think we all should be proud. Whatever our politics, we should be proud of what these guys accomplished. A very, very high impact mission under a lot of pressure.
what great words from JD Vance, who I absolutely adore. I am so glad that he is our vice president. I feel so reassured knowing, that he and Trump are working together. And Jay says, personally, I believe this was all planned. Israel was just paving the road for our bombers. And I'll tell you what, Jay, I don't know how far ahead this was planned, but you actually are right on the mark. I was just reading this morning how Israel, and again, I cannot confirm this, these are just back channels chatting about things, military members who are on different types of channels who talk about these scenarios. And I'll tell you that what they said was that Netanyahu asked Donald Trump, "What can we do for you? What can we do for you to help this mission be a success for you?" And allegedly, Donald Trump came back and said, "You know what? It kind of exactly what you're saying, Jay. Jay kind of paved the way. We want you to go ahead of us and strike all of the Iranian launchers within our path. This is where we're coming in. This is where we're exiting. Go through and clear the road ahead of us. Make sure that they don't have a means to attack us as we come through." And Israel systematically went in and they took out these various missile launchers along that pathway. And that did literally pave the way for us to come in and complete our mission. Now, again, I have a lot of different sources. We'll see. A lot of times we talk about these things and everybody's like, "Oh, you're crazy. That didn't happen." Then 2 or 3 days later, we hear that it actually is factual. We just hear it first because because I talk to these people. So maybe, maybe not. We'll see how that plays out. But either way, what the biggest question I think for everybody is, what comes next? What comes next? Again, Israel talking peace. I think Israel feels like they've accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. They no longer have the threat of nuclear weapons in Iran. Now, Russia claims that upon those strikes, there's a lot of folks out there, a lot of countries who are willing to give Iran a nuclear weapon. Now, I don't expect that to happen. I think that is just Russia doing what they do, making those threats and talking their things. They do a lot of that. Medvedev, of course, Dmitry Medvedev making that statement. I posted it on Facebook, as well as Dmitry Medvedev, Putin's right-hand man, also warning us as Americans that, hey, as these audits continue in the United States government, they're going to reveal that 30%, we already know this isn't new news to us, 30% of the equipment, heavy equipment you sent over to Ukraine ended up being sold, of course, on the black market, going out to very terrorist organizations across the country. And then what happens is a lot of these weapons make their way back into the United States. I don't know if it was maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, Colonel Adams and I even talked about it at that time, where we know there were surface to air missiles that came into our country. And maybe it was longer than that. It might have been about 6 months ago. They were coming into our country. We know that one of these dirty bombs was smuggled in through a backpack, and they've continued to look for it. When those drones were around New York City, remember, we kind of thought maybe they were sniffers and they were trying to find that nuclear backpack. So we do face a lot of threats in this country, and we never know when that call is going to come up and tell these people, today's the day, now it's time to enact your mission. We just don't know. And there's really no good way to prepare for that. I wish that Colonel Joe Adams had an online class, for people who don't live in the vicinity of Washington, Missouri, because he does have a lot of good information about how you can be prepared. And I think that we'll have to see where things go. Is Iran serious about threatening, 50,000 of our U.S. troops? And are they, serious about some of the other threats as they've made directly to Americans? Or, are they just trying to save face and keep people fearful? We don't know. But again, what I will say, and I will always say this, I don't fear Iran unless we attack them, which we have not really attacked Iran. As JD Vance said, we attacked their nuclear facilities. We have not yet enacted a regime change, but a lot of people are still talking about regime change. We have their former exiled crown prince speaking out very loudly over the past week about he's coming back to Iran, he's taken over, he's reclaiming, his leadership role. We could see, a coup staged within Iran, and maybe we set the stage for that. Now, I read some reports this morning that one of the Israeli strikes was right at the gate of one of the largest prisons in Iran. Now, if this is true, then it very well could make sense that they're trying to free all of the Iranian political prisoners. Because I think that if these people are freed from prison, it's probably the first time I've ever agreed that a prison break was a good idea. But if these political prisoners are freed from Iranian prisons, that is the ones, of course, that they haven't killed, these people are all going to work together. And I think that we don't need to enact a regime change. I think these people are going to overthrow their government, and we're just going to leave it to them to do what they need to do. Because unless you're in Iran wearing a black burqa, you do not support the Islamic Republic. Those are the people we see out marching in the streets and coming together in favor of the Islamic Republic, who hate us and want the death to America. The other Iranians, they're very happy that we conducted these strikes. They're very happy about it. They need liberated as much as some of those Russians did on the Ukrainian side of that war. So we'll see where things go and what we need to do from there. For this, as far as that Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz, they threatened to do that yesterday. In fact, there was at one point they threatened to do it within the hour. But as always with Iran, a lot of empty threats. It did not happen. And what their plan is they want to close the Strait of Hormuz. Their parliament voted for it. And we'll see if it actually happens or if we allow that to happen. If it does happen, there's two things that I'm concerned with. And, Iran says that if they close the port of Hormuz, which of course is where it's only 20% of petroleum comes through that strait. So it's not like, and we, of course, here in the United States, we have our own petroleum. We have ways around all of these things. It does not really hurt us that much. It hurts Iran far greater than it will ever hurt us. However, they'll be really kicking themselves in the behind if they close that Strait of Hormuz. But the problem we face here in the United States is that it's really our own people. You have to remember who are our gas stations owned by? Start thinking about that. Who owns our gas stations and our quick shops, quick convenience stores that sell gas? I think you can probably guess. And I'll tell you, the first thing that's going to happen, it doesn't matter that it's only 20% of the oil coming through. There's two things that are going to happen if they close that Strait of Hormuz. Crude oil is going to go up a very high percentage by the barrel, and that does affect us. But more than anything, we have to worry about price gouging, because there's a lot of people out there who want to take advantage of us. So let's just say one of these gas station owners or a group of gas station owners, a lot of them owned, by the same families, same people, same companies. They might get this bright idea. Oh, well, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Gas prices are, crude oil's going up. Let's just start raising our prices, because we know it happens. Donald Trump is not going to allow them to price gouge us for too long. But I do think you're going to see prices at the gas pump go up significantly if they close that strait. And it doesn't mean anything, because it's the gas station owners. It's not a true threat that we have to pay more for gas. It's the fact that people will take advantage of any situation, and they will definitely price gouge us on those gas prices. Don't think it won't happen. Col Joe Adams, totally correct. Jay Saunders, Iran couldn't have prevented it either way. And yes, and Iran could not have prevented it either way. You are correct on that one, Jay. And the best thing that could happen is that Israel allows Iran's Islamic Republic to destroy themselves. We've weakened them. We've given rise to, and a voice to, the people there who really need to go and finish the job. And I think we just have to leave it to the Iranian people. We'll see how things play out today. I think Iran knows better than to even attempt to take out 50,000 of our U.S. troops. I think it's another empty threat from Iran. They attacked the Syrian airbase yesterday, as we expected them to do, overnight. Yes, that's why I said earlier when Col Joe Adams first joined us this morning, I said, nothing's a secret mission anymore. Whenever those B-2 bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base, everybody's like, oh my gosh, the B-2s just took off. Some went towards Guam, some went the other way. We know exactly what they're doing. They're refueling as soon as they took off. That means they have a heavy load. There's nothing secretive anymore. with the internet and the fast instant communication. The same thing happened yesterday. Oh, Iran is preparing to attack U.S. military bases in Bahrain and Qatar and Syria and all these other places. Well, they did carry out a strike against our military base in Syria, but it wasn't anything significant. And I haven't read all the news. I just saw that it happened early this morning. I don't believe there were any injuries or anything occurred there. So we'll see how the story plays out. Let's see. Colonel Joe Adams, St. Louis Police Department goes back to the state today. Oh my gosh, Colonel Adams, I'm so glad you said that. I am so happy to hear that where it needs to be. And Stacy, gas is already up 6 cents locally. And Stacy, it's going to continue going up, not because it should go up, not because there's a reasonable reason for it to go up or a logical reason. They're going to price gouge us. That's exactly what's going to happen. And don't think that won't happen. And Lori, sometime it will not be an empty threat. And then they can say, we warned you. Lori, you're right. And that's why we just never know. And why we have to be prepared, because while they do make a lot of empty threats, they can't control all these rogue lone wolf sleeper cells that are in our country who are sitting there seething and they hate us and they can't wait to harm us. They're just waiting to be called to martyrdom by attacking us. And it's really difficult to protect ourselves from those types of attacks. I thought about this on Friday because we talked a lot about being prepared and what you do. I bought some extra propane, over the weekend, just in case something does happen and I need to cook outside. I think and I'll use it either way. Nothing wrong with that. It doesn't hurt to have some cash on hand. It doesn't hurt to have whatever essentials you might need to prepare for maybe 2 weeks, without potentially electricity or something. Now, I'm not going to say it could be longer than that. I know Colonel Joe Adams is probably laughing in the background saying 2 weeks, we're like 6 months. But, most people can effectively prepare for a couple of weeks. But the one thing I didn't talk about, and I should have talked about, is the fact that we're all very busy. We all work. We're all driving in here or there. We're not even at home, some of us, other than to sleep at night. You've got your kids maybe at daycare or at school. People need to come up with a plan, because you may not be at home, and most likely you won't be at home if something really big goes down here in the United States. You have to have a plan, and you have to make sure your family is aware of that plan. You have to take into consideration, you may not have a cell phone signal. You may not be able to communicate with your family, with your loved ones. So you need to have a plan ahead of time that, okay, if I'm at work, and my kids are at school, this is what we all do. This is how we all reconnect. This is where we go. This is what our plan is. And then you make sure every family member has a plan. And there are a little bit better ways about that, thanks to Elon Musk. If they cut off some of our cellular communication, depending on what kind of phone you have, you can connect to Starlink for free on most cell phones these days. So, that's an option. Explore if you can do that with your phone, if your children know how to use that feature. I know they have it on iPhones. I know T-Mobile has some type of rollout that they're conducting right now that's in the beta phases, but eventually we will have connectivity even if they cut our cell phone signals down. So that's something to think about. Make sure you have things in your car prepared, food, snacks, water, cash, that type of thing. Because I always think, man, if the big thing goes down, I'm probably not even going to be at home. I'm probably going to be at work. And then how am I going to get home? Because my safety's at home. I think a lot of us picture us at home where we have our supplies and our food and our hunting capabilities or whatever it is your strategy is. But you have to plan for the fact that you may or probably won't be home. So I'm just going to leave you with that thought now. Stacy says, bug in a bag, bug out bags. You got that right. And Daddy says, all my gasoline tanks have been treated for longer storage. Yeah, gasoline for me is a big one. I think that people need to have extra gasoline on hand, because not just because of the price gouging that's going to go on, but if they close that Strait of Hormuz, people are going to go nuts. And, there's different predictions. JP Morgan thinks that it could go up to, I think they said $130 a barrel, I'm pretty sure. And then there's other people saying it could go up to $200, $300 a barrel. We don't know. But either way, If something crazy is going on, you want to make sure you have gasoline in your gas tank, because while we all want to create that safe place at home, your home may end up turning out to be not the safe place you think that it might be, and you might have to flee and leave your home. So it's always good to have a full tank of gas if you can afford that, just in case, or to store up some gas. And you just never know. Sherry says everyone needs a rapid radio. Yes. And the other thing is, too, these days there are so many solar products out there. It is not difficult to find a solar product. There are solar cell phone chargers. They're about $20 online. You can buy solar generators. You can buy, so many different types of solar products to cook. It's endless these days, absolutely endless. So those are some things to think about also. And water. I think water, though, is number one. And let's say if it's 100 degrees outside, and trust me, I lived through this last year when I went to the oh, what is that guy's name? I can't even think of his name right now. And I went to a concert last year. I don't go to concerts often, but it was outside. And I'll tell you what, I seriously didn't think I was going to survive. It was a music festival, kind of. Well, it was a music festival. I was there out in Kid Rock. That's who I'm trying to think of. I was there for 2 nights and 3 days. It was 118 degrees was the heat index. And I seriously thought I was going to die. And I thought, man, if something crazy ever happens in this country, it's going to be like that, because I'm not going to have a heat source. I'm not going to have ice. Thankfully, they had a river there. Every person in that entire campground went down and sat in the river. We missed a lot of the musical acts because it was so darn hot. Buy a pool, buy a little pool. Aldi right now has these little kiddie pools that are about 2.5 feet deep, fit a couple people in, and they're, I think, $16, $17. If something crazy happens and it's really hot in your house for whatever reason, you don't have electricity, the best thing you can do is immerse yourself in some cool water, or find where your local lake is, or somewhere to cool off. Very important that you don't get overheated. When I was at that Kid Rock, and oh yeah, Stacy, you know all about that Kid Rock concert. When I was there, I'll tell you, people were dropping like flies. People cannot handle the heat. There was ambulances coming in all day, carrying people out because people were collapsing from the heat. And you have to remember, our bodies have a very difficult time if it's 110 heat index, 120 heat index, which is possible, in this region and many other regions of our country. So you have to plan ahead to stay cool, whatever that may take. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me today. I'm running over again. I didn't plan to. Dottie says during Helene, no cell phone coverage for 24 hours, no power for 6 days. It would be a good test run for my prep. I now keep more gas for the generator. Dottie, that's a good point. And I remember when that happened to you, and a lot of folks, that was a really bad situation. Mary says, sit in a car with AC, but it uses gas. I know, Mary, absolutely the case. And gas may be hard to come by, if something really crazy goes on. We've seen it happen in other countries where I remember in Sri Lanka, I don't know, a year or two ago, they had a coup that was taking place within their own country, and people died sitting in line waiting for gasoline, as crazy as that sounds. One man in particular, I felt so bad for him. He sat in line for 11 days to get gasoline, and he passed away because of the heat. And we say, oh, well, that's Sri Lanka. That'll never happen here. Don't ever tell yourself something can't happen here in this country. It's unlikely, but that doesn't mean it cannot ever happen. So it's better to be prepared than take your chances. All right, guys, that's it for me today. I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. I do hope you all have a fantastic day and stay cool. It's going to be pretty darn hot out there today. And I will see you all in the morning. Have a good day. And by the way, I'm Tabitha with Tabs on Tap.